Welcome into the roundtable. I'm Brad Wakai. That is my co-host Tyson Gentry. It is here, baby. March Madness starting today with the first four games. We're going to preview the entire bracket, give you our take. We're going to start with our thoughts on it in general, go through our futures that we've already placed and ones that we want to recommend to you guys, and then we're going to look at each region, have the bets that we're going to place in the first round, and kind of break things down where we see the teams filling in and look at it from there. Now, Tyson mentioned we went game by game last year. We're not going to do that as much this year as a preview. We just want to give you like any bets that we're going to place, how we think it could shape out, and give a highlight of some of the teams in this region. But Tyson, I know you love March Madness. You getting ready to go to a Calcutta after we're recording this, which I know you love to do too.
Yeah, they're fun. And just real quick, happy birthday to the boy. Brad has somehow planned it out since before he was born that his birthday would fall on the first day of March Madness. So here we are. We got the play-ins. He's going to be celebrating all weekend. We got St. Patty's Day on Friday. It's a big week for the man over in Brooklyn.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are like, well, you're doing a podcast on your birthday? Like, listen, we'd be doing a disservice, Tyson, if we weren't giving out the like we go grinding. All right,
I heard like a third of that. I got you cut out.
I don't know what's been going on with the internet here. It's been cutting in and out. But I'll say we got to share the love with everybody. You know, all the hours and sweat equity that we've been putting in to college basketball. We need to share with the people.
I mean, when you got notebooks full of just random stuff that you notice during the year, it's time to put it to work, man. And it's great to get to burn them after the first weekend because nothing that we've seen up until now matters all that much.
Now, when I first saw the bracket going through this, I thought the West was definitely the toughest region. So that's where you got Kansas as the 1 seed. You have UCLA as the 2 seed. Gonzaga, who's been playing much better, as the 3 seed. UConn is the 4 seed. I thought that was the toughest. I mean, I was surprised that the committee stacked those teams in the West, Tyson. That was something that surprised me.
It didn't feel like a great year for the committee on the whole. They gave us a bunch of mid-majors having to play against each other to start the tournament, or they matched them up with pretty terrible matchups all across the board for the really good ones, which always sucks because the fun of March for us watching is watching these guys go on runs. But the committee doesn't want a 12 seed in the Elite Eight because then they look bad. You know, they want your 1 through 4 and they want it to be chalk because we're geniuses and we know more than everybody else. But meanwhile, we're taking a coach's injury into account when seeding teams. I thought that was ridiculous. There were some things that they just can't explain, but that's part of the beauty of college sports. Like, you know, we spent 8 weeks getting pissed off at the college football playoff committee. It might as well get upset with the college basketball guys too.
Yeah, they need some hate. Come on, they're not immune to this. I mean, they've been getting shit on more than the football guys have in the past.
Well, it's a little bit easier to just say, okay, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and then we'll pick a random fourth. These guys got to go through 68 teams. Rutgers not getting in was a bit ridiculous. I thought A&M got criminally underseeded at 7. I think most bracket matrices out there had them at a 5 seed, which is probably more in line. But it's going to be an outlier year. I think you could throw out all the stats and stuff from previous tournaments because if you're looking for certain benchmarks that these teams have to hit, then you're down to Houston, Alabama, maybe Kansas, and UConn are like the 4 that I'm seeing everywhere that fill out all these things. And it's really hard to talk yourself into one of those 4 being head and shoulders above the field.
Yeah, and I thought Alabama out in the South, I thought they got the easiest draw imaginable.
Yep.
I think they're a sheer Final Four team, which we'll start in when we go through that. But I thought that was a great draw for them. There's really nobody that I can see truly competing with them or in the early rounds, which we know that's not NATO's specialty, the early rounds of a tournament. So I thought he got a great draw. I thought Purdue got hosed a little bit with theirs.
Yep.
I mean, you know, you got to play either Memphis or FAU, and then after beating that game, I think that'll be tough. You either got to play a Duke or a Tennessee, you know, as a 4 or 5 seed there. I mean, that's not necessarily great for Purdue. And then the question marks surrounding Houston and Marcus Sasser, you know, Texas, who we like a lot. We've been giving them out multiple times. I thought they just lucked into something there over in the Midwest. So A lot of good things, Tyson. So let's get into our futures picks now before we start breaking down the bracket and taking you through everything. In our chalkboard app, which Tyson will plug at the end, and make sure you guys are in it because our favorite pick and what we fired on, Duke plus 4,000. We hopped on that. They're now plus 3,500. You could have jumped on there and gotten a little bit better closing line value if you got in there with us in the chalkboard. Listen, why do we like Duke? They're the tallest team in the country. They're probably the hottest team in the country right now. They have a super talented roster with multiple five-star kids, and early in the season it didn't look like they were gelling. Well, they're gelling now, and they're finally living up that potential. An experienced guard in Jeremy Roach, who plays more off-ball now, with Tyrese Proctor filling more of that on-ball role, and Derek Lively, the number one recruit in the country last season, who's a freshman, he's finally starting to figure out how to play college basketball, and he has been dominant. So we think this is great, and I think they got a great draw. I mean, they got screwed a little bit with Oral Roberts at that 12-5.
Bob, baby.
Oof, they got screwed a little bit, but this is probably our favorite pick right now is Duke to win the national championship.
I think at the value you're getting for sure. Just the way they close the season, the fact that they have classic Duke guys, right? We were joking, like there's a big white guy that tries too hard on Duke that everyone's going to learn to hate over the next couple weeks, and I think that's true. And the most important part is the 5 stars look like 5 stars. Like these kids that were lauded coming into college basketball all of a sudden look like they were supposed to be here. This is their stage. And I was impressed at the way that they played in the ACC tournament because it was a little bit chameleon-esque. They were morphing into different versions of this Duke team in order to beat Virginia, beat Miami, having to play different styles. And being able to do that is super duper impressive. I thought they were going to be a 4, so sitting on the 5 line is a little bit interesting, and then getting probably the best mid-major in the country, or one of them, at least the most explosive one, is a little bit scary. But at plus 4,000, we had to do it. And then I've given out Texas on this show a handful of times. I think the first time I did it was plus 2,400.
Yeah.
And then now they're at plus 15. I don't know what else you need to see out of this team. I'm still worried that Marcus Carr can shoot them out of a game, but if he plays like he did in that Big 12 championship, I don't know if anybody in the country can beat these guys. I think Dylan Dessou has that college basketball X factor that you look for. Is he's got a short, almost push shot from the elbow, and when they throw it to him on the elbow and they clear it out to the other side, good luck. Because if he misses the shot, he's getting the rebound. And their quad 1 wins are insane. Like the level of competition they've played. Colgate's a really good team, and Colgate shoots the shit out of the ball. So that scares me a little bit for their first round matchup. But from there, I mean, you're getting a Houston team with injuries that last time we saw them looked not good against Memphis, and that's kind of your toughest opponent on that side. If they can get through the first 2 rounds, I think Texas has a really good shot to be playing in the Final Four.
Yeah, and so let's take a look on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, we got the odds pulled up here on FanDuel. Your favorite is Houston at plus 500, Alabama plus 750. Now, if besides Duke and Texas, I would have to take Alabama here. I think they're going to be in the Final Four. So if you have to win, I think they reach the Final Four pretty easily. Then you just have to win 2 games at plus 750. I like that a lot. Whereas if you look at Houston, they're going to have to beat Texas to get into the Final Four in the Elite Eight, which is going to be a tough matchup for Houston, especially if Sasser's hurt. And I think their path is a little bit harder. And you look at Purdue plus 1,200, that makes no sense to me. Way too low. UCLA without Jalen Clark at plus 1,200. They're going to have a tough road. They're going to have to face Gonzaga in the Sweet 16 potentially. And Gonzaga sitting there plus 1,500. And Kansas also in the West, they have to face UCLA and the Elite Eight. So I think when you look at that, you're looking at these numbers and nothing really jumps out. Now, Arizona, same region as Alabama at plus 1,500. I don't like that. Marquette plus 1,800, same side as Duke.
Interested in that a little bit.
Okay.
I think Marquette got a good first couple games for them, right? Going against Vermont every year for the last decade, it feels like, is everybody's like, oh, watch out, Vermont could beat somebody, and they haven't yet. So they're scary. But then you're looking at probably Michigan State, maybe USC, and then Kansas State following that, or Kentucky, I guess. Shout out to the Montana State Bobcats. But it's like Marquette could realistically not truly have to sweat like these other guys until they get to a Duke, Purdue, Memphis opponent in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to look at it too. Like their expected win value in these first couple rounds, you'd expect to be high against a USC team coming in injured and didn't play very well in their conference tournament, and they kind of stumbled down the stretch. And then a Michigan State team who's really hot from three and they can beat anybody, or that offense is putrid. So, Kentucky at plus 3,500, that's way too short. TCU, there's some question marks there. They're at plus 4,000, but they're also in the same region as Kansas, UCLA, and UConn and Gonzaga. So that's going to be hard. We like TCU coming in before we saw the bracket. Now I would not bet them. I don't think they're good enough to get out of that region, me personally. So that's a no bet for me there. I mean, is there anybody else, Tyson, when you're looking through this that you're like, okay, I can be talked into betting this team?
Well, one thing that I thought was super interesting with this is Xavier's a 3 seed, and they're sitting there at plus 5,000. So I think the public and the books disagree with the committee a little bit as far as where Xavier ends up, and probably for good reason. But if you're getting down into these super long shots, like maybe a flyer on A&M, maybe a flyer on San Diego State to make a little run here, but I'm not super interested. Like, we talk ourselves into this every year, and then it's just chalk when the final weekend shows up. It's like, well, of course these are the 4 teams left. So don't overthink it. It's March Madness for 2 rounds, or for the first round, and then it's the cream rises to the top, and the best teams normally win.
Yeah, 100%. And it's tough when we'll break this down and we'll look at it, and so you think like, oh, this is good price on this team, and then we'll break down the bracket. And you're like, oh, I don't know if that's actually possible. And so before we move on to actually breaking this baby down, Tyson and I are calling our shot here. We got Texas and Duke in the championship game. That's plus 7,500. We will be holding that ticket because those are our 2 favorite teams. We think this draw actually plays out in their favor. So that's going to be something that we look at. All right.
I'm excited, man.
Oof, I can't wait, dude. I can't wait. So we're going to start in the South. For those watching on YouTube, you can follow along with us. For those listening on podcast, we'll try to break this down as best as we can without the visual. So Alabama's facing the winner of the play-in game currently going on as Tyson and I are recording on Tuesday here. They're going to be in Birmingham. That's obviously going to be a pro-Alabama crowd. We're not much to break down, but they're going to play the winner of Maryland and West Virginia. And this is interesting because West Virginia is a 2.5-point favorite, over under set at 137.5. I actually going to have a bet on this game. I'm going to be taking West Virginia on the money line, and because I do think they advance. But anybody past this, I don't think is going to be standing a chance for Alabama, as I pseudo broke down to start.
Well, I really want West Virginia to win because I think a Huggins versus Nate Oates matchup would be all time to watch on the sidelines. Maryland's got the guys. Like, if you want to break it down, like it's star point guards and 7'5" guys basically are the guys that kind of throw a wrench into everybody's bracket. Jabir Young's really good. I think Maryland can score enough to beat West Virginia, but I think that game is going to be a rock fight, man. I'm really excited for that one.
And so here's the game that a lot of people have circled: San Diego State, Charleston, the classic 5-12 matchup. A lot of people are picking Charleston here. We can break that down, but I'm going to give this real quick, Tyson. I think the 4-13 game in this region is where people should be looking. I'm calling my shot here. Furman is beating Virginia. I'm taking them plus 5.5, and I'm also going to take them money line. I think they beat Virginia because Virginia is just not as good as people remember this team. And I was talking to my mom today because she was like, what do you think, about the bracket? We're kind of going through it. I'm like, everybody remembers that Virginia run, Tyson, after they beat or after they lost to UMBC and then they won it the next year. They were super lucky to be there.
Yeah.
Like, they probably should have lost in Sweet 16. They probably should have lost in the Elite Eight. And then the Final Four, kind of funky things happen from there. But I don't know. Everybody looks at Virginia like they're some powerhouse staple of the NCAA tournament. Well, that's just not the accurate case here. So I'm going to target a Furman team. Ken Pom has them 89th in the country, 33rd on offense. So I think they can compete with Virginia. Now, their defense does stink. It's 183rd in the country compared to Virginia's 74th ranked offense in those metrics. So Virginia may be able to get easier buckets than normal, which does scare me.
When's the last time Virginia got an easy bucket?
Exactly. That's my thought here. So I'm gonna be calling my shot. Furman beats Virginia.
I like it. I think a lot of people are on the 12, and you texted me this right away too. So I don't Seth Davis getting up there or whoever it was and saying, "Oh, Furman's a very good match." Like it was Brad had the thought all by himself. Okay, get off his back. But everybody's focused on the 5-12 game. I don't think the committee did Charleston any favors because they put them up against the other deepest team in the country. But we have a real shot of a 12-13 matchup here in the second round. I think moving down the list, like if you're Creighton, you got to be pretty nervous with the way things shook out. And is anybody really afraid of Baylor as a 3 seed?
No, 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 no.
I don't know how you could be. I think um, in this region, if you wanted a true underdog, I think people aren't looking at Utah State hard enough because they're looking at Furman and they're looking at Charleston as those guys. Utah State is really good and they're good at
Really good.
everything. And would you be surprised if Arizona just decided to not show up in the second round of the tournament? Because I think Utah State's going to beat Missouri.
Yep.
And I think that if I had to pick one underdog from this side of the bracket to make it to the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight, I think Utah State would have to be the one.
I love Utah State staying out in Sacramento as well. That's an area that they're comfortable in. Missouri's going to have to go across the country. Utah State's actually 1.5-point favorite in this game as the 10 seed, which
Isn't
is
that
hilarious.
crazy?
Ken Palm has Utah State by 4. I think Utah State blows out Missouri. Like this, I think this could be a no contest. Missouri gives up so many threes to opposing teams, and they got away with it because they're in the SEC. You can't do that against Utah State. Utah State's going to kill Missouri. And as far as anything with Baylor goes, don't fall in love with the Baylor team from the past. When people fall in love with what happened in the past, you can't do that. You have to look at who the teams are now. USC Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara has a real shot to win this game. Now, I'm not picking that as an upset. I'm a little bit too scared, Tyson. But I think this is going to be a close one. I can see myself taking the points with them.
Well, it's Baylor's super disappointing. I think if you're trying to, they don't look the same. Much like Virginia, they don't look like the Baylor team that you might remember from a couple years ago that won a national championship. But all that to say, basically, this is the region that I think if we had a 1 versus 2 matchup to get in the Final Four, I'd be the least surprised.
Probably. I think, Arizona is probably more talented than Utah State. And then let's say if Creighton, I mean, we're expecting them to make that run, right? But NC State's guards are good. Then they'll have to beat another team who can score offensively, which is Baylor. And Baylor, if they can get past Santa Barbara, which is a tough matchup for Creighton. So, they may not even pose a challenge. I think Arizona could just run Baylor out of the gym. And then if you go up here, I mean, Bama is going to potentially have to face on the road in the Sweet 16, either San Diego State, who can't score offensively, Furman team who Bama would just blow out of the gym, and Charleston who can run up and down, but they don't have the players like Bama. So that's why we highlighted this. We think this is a shoe-in for Alabama to get to the Final Four out of this region.
Yeah, we're both on Bama to win the South here. Not riveting, but probably correct.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move over to the Midwest, and as we highlighted, we have Houston as the 1 seed. And in the 2 seed is Texas, as we discussed, a vulnerable 3 seed in Xavier. I'm going to give out a bet here just to start, Tyson. Houston's going to blow out Northern Kentucky. They're going to blow them out. Houston's
That's
the first
bold.
rated. It's crazy. The game opened 21 or Houston minus 21. It's down to 19.5. There's been buyback on that. I don't see it at all, regardless of having Sasser in or not. They're way more talented than Northern Kentucky. Don't be scared of a big number in these situations. Northern Kentucky's lucky to be here. They're 161st in Ken Palm rating in the country. Their defense is 121st, and their offense is 217th. They may not score a basket for 10 minutes against Houston. So it's going to be a blowout city here.
You know who got the worst draw in the entire tournament?
Who?
Auburn. Having to go to Birmingham with a number 1 seed at Alabama, who everybody knew was going to be in Birmingham for 3 weeks. They're not going to have a fan in that fucking gym. Like, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be all Iowa all the time. That's going to be a good game. A lot of people are on Drake as the 12, and they're a good team. But to me, like, you have the star power from the guards from Miami. You have a very good coach who's proven he can win games in the tournament. I'm not fading Miami like everybody else is. Kent State, I think, is the interesting one here to pull off a first-round upset. Bad taste in my mouth from what Indiana did a year ago. I can't get it out of my head. And then to show up in the Big Ten tournament when things were kind of laid out on a silver platter for you. All you had to do was walk the red carpet, wave, kiss a couple babies, and you're in the championship game. And they got the piss beat out of them by Penn State. Not on the scoreboard necessarily, but physical basketball kind of seems to be something that they struggle with. Not that Kent State plays physical, but March becomes a fist fight at certain times, especially against the high major teams versus mid majors. Like, we're out here to prove something. No, none of your coaches wanted us, and we want to win the game. And I don't like Mike Woodson's a really good coach. I don't think Mike Woodson's a tournament coach.
Yeah, and you can have two different things, right? Like that's what you're looking for. I mean, Rick Barnes, awesome coach, bad in the tournament. Bobby Hurley, to this point, awesome coach, or not Bobby, Danny Hurley at UConn,
Yeah,
awesome coach in the regular season, horrible in the tournament. It's there. Some people just can't handle it, and then on the flip side, you have good tournament coaches as well. Like Izzo always finds a way to make a run. Just got to find those spots that you're looking to target. I am to go back here, Tyson. I am taking Drake over Miami. A lot of it has to do with Miami's forward, Norshad Omier, getting hurt,
yeah.
ankle injury. They're kind of keeping under wraps. I think he may have torn some ligament damage in that ankle. Like he did not look right walking, and that did not look just like a sprain. Like that thing was cranked to the side. And so if he can't play, Drake's going to pound him on the offensive glass. Just pound him. We saw that. I mean, Miami had the bomb threes to even compete against Duke. Like they were just hitting insane shots. The reason why I like Drake in this matchup too is Drake's, besides Oral Roberts, probably the best mid-major. They're 66th in KenPom ratings, 98th on offense, 44 on defense.
They take care of the ball.
They could take care of the ball a lot. They have older players. I think two of their players are 25 in the starting lineup. And this is an interesting contrast because Miami's 12th on offense. Drake's 44th on defense. Drake's 98th on offense. Miami 132nd. Miami 105th in tempo. Drake 222nd in tempo. So contrasting styles. I want to see if Drake's guards can control this or if Miami's guards can. That's going to be the key to the game here. Then I think everybody's talking Kent State and it's making me nervous. I have to go Indiana here. I think they're just going to be too big for Kent State and they're not good enough offensively to compete with Indiana, who I think is going to get easy looks at the rim.
I mean, if Isaiah Wong doesn't get a coming out party in the NCAA tournament, then I don't know what this whole season's been about. I don't know what we did this whole thing for. Moving down here, we were talking before the podcast. It always seems like a first four team plays their way into at least the Sweet 16, if not farther. We were kind of trying to identify which one of those 11s this could be. We kind of circled this Mississippi State-Pittsburgh game as somebody. I think Iowa State, I think they just big boy Pittsburgh. So I think it'd have to be Mississippi State. So that game later tonight is going to be pretty important. Xavier sucked to end the year. It was disappointing. And then Marquette woke up and just pissed in their Cheerios to set that thing off. Like that was over from opening tip. We got to talk about the A&M Penn State game. I think that's the most intriguing matchup to me in the first round on this side. I don't think people understand how good A&M is. And I think it's interesting that Penn State's a 10 in the Big Ten tournament, and they're a 10 seed here to open up March Madness. That's a lot of love for a team that hasn't, or for a conference that hasn't shown up in the tournament in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think when you look at Penn State's, that's going to be the lowest they're going to give a Power 5, roughly around the 10 spot. So, I was honestly surprised they gave him a 10 after being a possession away from winning the Big Ten tournament. But we saw the committee. What they emphasized this year was the whole body of work, not how you finish the season. So, all right, whatever.
Which it was only true sometimes because it wasn't true for Rutgers.
It wasn't true for A&M, clearly, who is second in the conference and second in the conference tournament. And they're like, actually, no.
Yeah, it's a bit ridiculous.
I'm intrigued by this. Penn State does not do a good job because we don't have the size to rebound. And we saw that in the 3 matchups against Purdue. They get pounded on the glass. They beat Indiana twice just by shooting them out of the gym. Otherwise, Indiana controls those games because of their size. So that's what Penn State's going to have to counter, how Texas A&M hammers the offensive glass. Because if Penn State can't keep them off of there, it's over. They're just not very good on defense. They're 110th in the country in defense, Tyson. That scares me in any tournament play, especially when matching up against teams from other conferences who are not as familiar, or you're not as familiar with them either. The one thing I can say, I think that can keep Penn State in this game is their advantage shooting the 3. The SEC was not good shooting the ball. I think a lot of these teams could potentially get shell shocked this year by teams who can shoot the three and get up and down because it's a style of play that they're not used to defending or needing to defend. So I think this is going to be a close game. I really do.
I mean, this is a free throw contest. Like A&M has to get to the line for their offense to like work. They don't light anybody up from the field. They want to bang inside. They want to grab offensive rebounds. They want to go to the line. Penn State was all time impressive from the free throw line during the Big Ten tournament. For stretches there, it was really really good. And then we've seen that sometimes they miss in bunches and they
Right.
miss kind of important ones. But when they're rolling, what was it against Indiana? What they go 19 for 19 or something before their first miss, which kept them in the game. I said that Isaiah Wong needs a coming out party, but I still don't think people understand that Jalen Pickett's going to the league, and he's the guy that can actually get to the low block and take a fadeaway off the other shoulder. I don't really have that in the SEC, so that's a Texas A&M's defense is super good and really fun, but sometimes somebody that's going to the NBA can just show up and fuck this whole thing up. And I think Jalen Pickett has the potential to be that guy. The problem is for them in the second round, I mean, you're going up against 3 or 4 of those in Texas. Colgate's scary because you could be up by 15 and they're not out of the game. They might just come down and start shooting 30-footers, and then it's a snowball effect and Texas tucks their tail. But to me, man, I got Texas all the way to the Elite Eight at least. And I have them all given it out at the end. But this one, like, if you're looking for upsets, man, I'm not seeing a ton of them.
Texas minus 13 is a bet for me. They're going to pound Colgate. I understand, like, people are scared, and I understand the narrative behind it, Tyson. I'm scared just because that's our bet or that's our future ticket. But Colgate, 114th in the nation. They did not play in a good conference. Their defense stinks, 231st in the country. Texas is going to get anything they want. They're going to blow out this Colgate team. I'm not nervous at all. I want to take, if I'm looking here, I want to take Kennesaw State over Xavier. Like, I really want to. I don't think I can do it just because the metrics aren't good enough for Kennesaw State. But, Xavier's metrics look good, but they lost, their big man Fremantle, who's out. Or did they lose Nunji? It's one of the big men that they lost. Let me look that up real quick. But here's a little caveat, and this is going to be a theme to the upsets that I'm looking for. I do this every single year when the bracket comes out. I look to see who's calling the game. If Iron Eagle is on the call of a potential upset, something's going to happen. You have to find the potential upset because it happens every single year. Every year, Iron Eagle is on the call of a big upset. Iron Eagle calls the Xavier Kennesaw State game. Iron Eagle is calling the Montana State Kansas State game. Iron Eagle is calling Providence Kentucky the 11-6. Something in there's going to be an upset. I don't know if I can pick Kennesaw State over Xavier. I think they're just going to be too much talent there on that Xavier team, but just something to keep in mind here as we get through this thing.
Well, rooms get a little bit smaller in March, and Xavier wants to beat you by scoring the basketball. And if they can't do that, then they might be in for a interesting end of the season there. Who do you have taking the Midwest as a whole here?
Texas. Listen, here's the thing. If Sasser can't come back, and I'm honestly looking at it here, as we get through this thing, let's say like a Drake or an Indiana gets here. I think they're going to give Houston a run for their money in the Sweet 16. Just if Drake can get that far, if Indiana can get there, and if India finds a way to like play with each other and just find a way to win in the tournament, their length and size I think can bother Houston. Like, it reminds me a little bit of Memphis. A good guard in Hood Schifino and obviously Kendrick Davis, and then some size around the perimeter. That could be something. But it's all about Indiana showing and proving that they can do it. But I like Texas, man. This is an easy route for them if they're facing Texas A&M or Penn State. I like them there. If they're facing a Xavier, if they get through an Iowa State, well, we see what Texas has done to Iowa State. I think I like their route to the Elite Eight.
And they're battle tested all year long. They've been playing good teams, and that's kind of we put a little bit too much stock into the AP Top 25 poll. I think over the year, like when you look at it and you're like, well, Charleston was in the AP Top 25 for 2 weeks. That's just somebody else's opinion. But when every week you're playing 2 of these guys from the top 25 and you're walking out relatively unscathed, right? I think they split with Baylor. They lost one to Kansas, but like these are really good teams and they're coming together at the right time. I don't see anybody that can. Texas is going to make everybody on this side of the bracket until they play probably Houston. They're going to make them play their style of basketball.
And it is Zach Fremantle who's out for Xavier, not Jack Nungy. So just want to correct myself a little bit there. All right, let's move into the West here. Kansas, the 1 seed. UCLA, the 2 seed. Gonzaga, the 3 seed. UConn, the 4 seed. St. Mary's, the 5 seed. Easily the toughest region in the entire bracket. Like if you come out of this, you're going to be battle tested for sure. Um, I I know everybody's looking at this game here, Tyson. St. Mary's VCU, and VCU's the hot pick. I'm going to be contrarian. I'm going to go St. Mary's. I'm going to bet that as well. I'm going to take a -4.5. VCU is not in a good A10 this year, and St. Mary's pissed me off against Gonzaga in that championship game. But I'm not willing to throw out, what we saw from St. Mary's this season and how good I think that roster is. Now they struggled against the press in the conference tournament. VCU can do a little bit of that to them. But they also played their conference tournament pretty early, Tyson. You don't think that they're going to be working on press breakers? I definitely think they do. I like St. Mary's on a comfortable one against VCU.
Well, and Randy Bennett kind of knows how to win these games. And a lot of times St. Mary's isn't supposed to win these, so this is kind of new territory for them. But it's a coach's game, man. That's what college basketball boils down to. VCU has like all the hallmarks that you're going to look for. Like they force turnovers, they get up and down, they want to score on you, they play good defense, all that stuff. St. Mary's is just a better version of Virginia to me. At least on offense, the way they play, it's very like, okay, we have 30 seconds of the shot clock and we're using all 30 seconds. And if they control the pace, I don't know how VCU keeps up with that. I think the scariest one here for me, like, there's a chance Arkansas just decides, fuck this. Like, we're better than Kansas. And I think that that's a real life possibility, especially with the way Kansas looked to end the year. And I know Bill Self wasn't there. Is he a 20-point difference? Maybe. Probably not. I don't think so. But Arkansas has, like, the makings. If you watch this team going back to the beginning of the year, right, like we're pre-Christmas, this is a team that people are like, whoa, Arkansas is really good. Kind of struggled a little bit to close the season there, but they have all the tools to be the one this year. Because, was it 6 years in a row, once he's lost in the second round?
I believe so. Yeah, that sounds right to me. And I'll tell you right now, my favorite, or one of my favorite bets of Thursday, Arkansas money line. They're -1.5 right now. I think they handle
Illinois. Illinois sucks.
They're not good. They're not good. In Arkansas, and they're very similar. This is what's hilarious to me, Tyson, is that we look at the committee and how they match it up, at least according to KenPom. Arkansas 20th, Illinois 33rd. Arkansas 51st on offense, Illinois 58th. Arkansas 16th on defense, Illinois 32nd. Arkansas 54th in tempo, Illinois 71st. Mirror images, basically, of the teams playing each other. It just so happens that Arkansas has one of the best freshmen in the country, and Nick Smith Jr. Anthony Black, their guard, is awesome. And
they got the twins.
And I agree. If they had Trayvon Purcell, if he didn't tear his ACL, this is an elite team. I mean, they were awesome pre-Christmas. And I circled them like, this is an Elite Eight team. I'm not quite sure that they showed it. They had a bunch of injury issues that they had to deal with that you highlighted. I would not be shocked if Arkansas beats Kansas. I would not be shocked. They're one of those teams. They have the length and size and athleticism that can bother Kansas on the perimeter, which I think is where they will struggle in the tournament this season.
Another one here for me that I'm circling in the first round. I think the UConn Iona game is going to be awesome. Everybody in the world right now apparently is on UConn, and I can't figure out why. Like the computers love them, and they have the firepower and all this stuff. But like when you watch them, it just feels different than when you watch Texas, when you watch Bama, all these other kind of top. It feels different than when you watch Marquette, frankly, from their own conference. Would you be shocked? UConn's up 8. 6 minutes left. Iona goes on a run. Hurley gets a technical foul. Things start unraveling. Rick Pitino coaches, basically just outcoaches UConn down the stretch, and Iona's able to get a win that way. Talent-wise, shouldn't be close.
Right.
But we've said that a handful of times in the NCAA tournament, and they're going to be close. They kind of the 13-4 matchups have become the new 5-12. I think that
100%.
Everyone was looking for the upsets there. If you're giving me Rick Pitino, I might just have to fire.
That's the thing. The coaching mismatch is huge in this game. Rick Pitino's a better coach than Danny Hurley. The talent-wise, obviously goes to UConn. Like they have probably 2 NBA players on the team, maybe 3. One for sure, one bona fide one for sure. And the thing that I struggle with, this is not the best Iona team in the past couple years, Tyson. I think if it was the
Yeah.
team from last year, who I think they missed the tournament, or maybe they got, and I can't even remember at this point. This team's not as good as last year. They struggled through the regular season. They had some interesting losses in their conference that kind of raised some eyebrows, and they looked solid in the tournament. And that championship game looked like a blowout, or really wasn't. Like 10 minutes left, they turned on the Jets and really finished the deal here to get into the tournament. But I would not be shocked if Iona pulls off the upset. I don't see you. I don't have UConn going far. I can't trust Danny Hurley. I can't trust this team. I don't care. Like you said, the computers love them. KenPom has them 4th in the country, 6th on offense, 18th on defense. Like you said, when I watch them, I don't see that. Like I just flat out don't. And then one that scares me, Tyson, is TCU, man. They're vulnerable to me. I like this team. I like Mike Miles. No Lampkin. And, we're not going to get into the accusations being thrown at Jamie Dixon and things like that. But losing that big man, I don't think
Killer.
Nevada can take advantage. I think Arizona State could.
Yeah, but that's where it gets interesting when you're doing this. That's why I like to fill out like the real ones that I enter into, like the work pools or whatever. I always like to wait till the play-ins are done, because when you get into this, it's like, well, Arizona State could beat TCU, but then Nevada goes and beats Arizona State, and now your whole thing's messed up. I think TCU has the physical nature to be able to play with some of these guys out west here, but like it's really tough for them to win one game, B beat Gonzaga, and then probably play UCLA. But I do want to point out, man, I think Boise State has the potential to just ruin everybody's bracket. Nobody likes them. They don't care. They're going to show up. They're going to play their defense. They're going to be stupidly athletic. Offense is going to make you puke. It's not going to make sense the way that they're playing. But I think them versus UCLA, like to me, I'm already circling that. I think they're going to beat Northwestern. I don't particularly like the style of basketball Northwestern plays, and I think you have to score the ball in order to win games in the tournament, and they don't do that. But I think Boise State, UCLA, like I'm looking for that under already. If I could place a bet right now on under 100 points, I might take it.
I'm going to be taking an under in Northwestern Boise State game for sure. Opened 128.5. It's down to 127. Jump on that right now. But here's what's interesting, Tyson. This open, Boise State is the favorite, 1.5 point favorite, actually. As of today, Northwestern is now the favorite. So bettors are liking this Northwestern team. Now I think Boo Buie is going to be the best player on the floor at the guard spot. But Boise State in that Mountain West, they have to guard guards in that conference. Like they know how to contain them, and their defense is actually really good. They're 14th in the country on defense. Now Northwestern's 13th, according to KenPom metrics. So this is going to be a rock fight. That's one of the reasons why I'm taking the under. And both offenses stink. Boise State 78, Northwestern 109. So the tempos are both slow. 219 for Boise State, 305 for Northwestern. I like the under in this one. I think I'm going to pick Boise State. But, man, it's hard to go against that line movement. But my bet is going to be the under here. And then don't be surprised if Grand Canyon gives Gonzaga a run. And I know you wanted to say something about Gonzaga. It's interesting how all of a sudden now's the team that everybody's buying in on Gonzaga. Like everybody used to shit on them all the time. Like they don't play anybody, even though they had NBA players. And now on the team they don't. They're like, man, watch out for Gonzaga coming out of the hardest region in the bracket. Like it's ass backwards.
They got a little lucky. They are in the hardest region, but I think second round they should be able to handle whether it's TCU, Arizona State, or Nevada. And with UCLA, the injuries that they're facing right now, although I'm a little bit concerned that people are blowing that too far out of proportion, because the same team that played Arizona in the Pac-12 championship, that team could win the national championship. Like Mick Cronin coaches in March. That's what Mick Cronin does. He's going to show up here. He's going to win games. So I think that part's scary, but just like to look at the Jalen Suggs team and to look at the Chet Holmgren team and then to look at this Gonzaga team and be like, finally, they're going to get it done. It's crazy. It's crazy because nobody watched them until they played St. Mary's in the West Coast Conference Championship. And then it's like, well, Gonzaga is still Gonzaga. When all year long, it was like they're sweating wins against the University of Montana.
Yep. And they had a down year. I mean, second to St. Mary's, did win the tournament, but they lost some games that they normally don't lose. And as we look at this from a bigger picture, Tyson, UCLA is going to be my pick out of this region. I think Kansas is a vulnerable 1 seed, and some people may think that's crazy. I don't necessarily think so. Listen, they dominate the Big 12. That's what they do. And it's year over year that they do it. And it's super impressive. And we always say, man, the Big 12, that's the best conference in the country. And it probably is. But when you're going to have to face an Arkansas team, I believe. I think you're going to probably have to face either a St. Mary's or a UConn team who can make Kansas play a hard style of basketball that I don't necessarily think Kansas wants to play. And then I think you're going to have to face UCLA in the Elite Eight if Kansas even gets through the Sweet 16 game. I don't see them coming out of this one. UCLA is my pick because if they match up with Gonzaga's defensive rating is 100 or is a 76 in the country. Now they have the best offense. UCLA is not going to allow them to score at will on the offense. UCLA has the best ranked defense in the country. Give me UCLA to the Final Four out of the West.
I honestly, and I feel bad because we're making the same picks here everywhere, but to me, like when I saw UCLA as the 2 after they went through this entire bracket and gave us all these really tough matchups, all these tough teams, it's perfect for UCLA. It's perfect. Like you want to play physical basketball against some of these guys, good luck with UCLA. You want to play your style, you don't get to because UCLA dictates the pace, they dictate the tempo, and they dictate not just the speed, but the physicality that the game's going to be played at, which I think is why they've had success in the tournament because the Pac-12 normally ends up shitting down their leg here in the second round. But this is, make no mistake, this is a Mick Cronin Cincinnati team that just happens to be in Los Angeles. And like there's winners all up and down this roster. And if they make it to the Final Four again, we got to sign a petition or something to get Bill Walton there.
Oh, no, dude, I can't do that. This is CBS
Come
product.
on.
You can keep that crap on late night ESPN.
He's the best.
Oh, God, he's hard to watch. I know you love
Who would
him.
win
My
a fight
God.
between a Wildcat and a Bear? He
Ugh,
says in the
Jesus.
middle of a 60-60 game with 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's absurd. All right, let's head out east. Purdue's your 1 seed. Marquette, the Big East champs, your 2 seed. Kansas State, your 3 seed. Tennessee, your 4 seed. Duke, your 5 seed. Purdue's going to dominate their 116 matchup, obviously. Now, here's where it starts getting interesting early. Memphis and Florida Atlantic. Now, Florida Atlantic, we keep saying this. It's probably either FAU, Oral Roberts, or Drake who are the best mid-majors in the country. It's one of those 3 schools. Now,
31 wins.
31 wins. And they're gonna have a test against Memphis, who is feeling themselves right now, rated 19th in the country, according to KenPom. And both these teams are like mirror images of each other in terms of how they want to play. Now, Memphis plays at a higher pace than FAU, but both similar on offense, similar rating on defense. Like I can't wait for this game. Memphis 2.5-point favorite. So they're expected to win this one according to the bookmakers. How do you see this one going?
This is kind of the classic college basketball here because I think Memphis beats Purdue, but Purdue beats Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic's little. Like they're small. And they do okay on the glass, but they don't have to play Big Ten style basketball. They don't have to play against a 7'4" Naismith winner probable. Has that been announced yet?
No, not yet.
So Edie will win the award. I mean,
yeah.
Might as well just pencil it in. This is like Memphis matches up worse to me with Florida Atlantic than they do with Purdue, which might be weird talking about an 8-9 versus a 1. But if you have a Purdue future ticket, I think you're really hoping Florida Atlantic wins that basketball game.
Yeah, and I think you're also hoping that Oral Roberts beats Duke because Duke is a bad matchup for Purdue. Whoa, what do you mean? The Purdue
they do everything that Purdue does better than Purdue does it.
Better guards. They're just as big. I mean, they're going to have 3 7-footers to throw at Edie.
Shire's never pooped his pants in front of the nation like Painter has.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Painter, just such a bad tournament coach when it comes to the March Madness. And I understand that he's made Sweet 16s, and he's going to probably make one this year. Probably not a Final Four. He's been to the Elite Eight once. Like, that's just what this Purdue team does. Here's what I'm scared about with Oral Roberts. In years past, the teams that beat Duke are teams that can just shoot the lights out and have really good guards. That's what Oral Roberts has. Now, the difference this year is I think their paint defense allows them to just match up one-on-one, and guards have to take those mid-range jumpers where not really many people are comfortable doing today's day and age, Tyson. So I think that helps. Like, they're going to be able to guard them out a little bit further. If you want to take the mid-range, go for it. And they do have a 7-footer, Oral Roberts does, from the SEC, a transfer. But Vanover. But listen, man, he's not Filipowski. He's not Lively. Like those guys are legit NBA players. And Vanover, he's a good player, and I like A. Smith. And it's funny because we saw him beat that Ohio State team, and I watched Oral Roberts this year. I'm like, dude, Max Ace we saw him as like an 18, 19-year-old kid, and now he's like a 22, 23-year-old. Like he like filled out. It's hilarious. Duke's gonna win this game. Duke's too talented. And I know a bunch of people are potentially going to pick Oral Roberts over Duke because it looks good and everybody hates Duke. I don't think they're better than Duke, and I don't think they can get this done. But, Tyson, I will say I may be interested in Oral Roberts plus 6.5.
I think so. I think it's going to be a classic Duke tournament game where you feel scared the entire time, and then they find a way to win it at the end. But, like, when you look at Oral Roberts on the surface, you see that 30-4 record, and you're like, whoa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lost to Houston by 38. Lost to St. Mary's by 8, lost to Utah State by 10, and lost to New Mexico by 7. Those are the good teams that they played.
Wow.
Those are the good teams that Oral Roberts had on their schedule this year. Like, they beat Liberty. That's their best win, probably. To me, it's like the mid-majors that do well in the tournament typically have seen some high-level competition at some point throughout the year, and they didn't lose by 38 points. And I know it was early and it was a different Houston team. It was probably a different Oral Roberts team. I didn't give them enough attention this year to really be able to tell you how they progressed throughout the season. I checked in on them a handful of times. They just happened to be running into the only team in the tournament that's pretty much as hot as they are. That's tough for Oral Roberts, and I think that's tough for Duke as well. And that's what I was saying with the committee. Like, what the fuck? Why can't Duke and Tennessee switch spots after the injury over to Tennessee? Like, everybody in the country seems to be on Louisiana to beat Tennessee. Right. Maybe they could do it, but like Tennessee's just going to big boy them, I think. They're just too big. They play a different style of basketball that Louisiana's not used to. Everybody loves Providence. Providence didn't have to play against Oscar Tshiebwe all year, and that's tough. That's a guy that you don't really have the opportunity to prepare for in 2 days' time, 3 days' time. Man, we got to talk about my Bobcats, baby.
I like Tennessee to beat Louisiana. I think they're going to be too big, too talented, too athletic. I think where they're running the trouble without Kai Ziegler, their guard, is against Duke. I'm going to take Providence to beat Kentucky, Tyson. Kentucky struggles against teams who can score, and Providence can just flat out score the basketball. And they're going to try to run Kentucky up and down. This is an over game for me. It's the over's 144.5. That the over under that line. This is a play for me on the over, and I'm taking Providence money line. That's gonna be a 2-teamer for me. Let's talk about those Bobcats because listen, you're gonna have Iron Eagle calling Providence, Kentucky, and then going right into Montana State and Kansas State, who I think Tyson's a vulnerable 3. I really do. I can see Montana State somehow beating this team, but I want you to talk it through because you're not as bullish on the old Bobcats as me.
I mean, one of the things that I really like for upset teams and teams to make runs in the tournament is who gets to the free throw line. And if I'm not mistaken, Montana State's the second best in the entire field at getting to the free throw line versus field goal attempts during a game. That bodes really well for them. The problem is, like, Raekwon Battle has to score. And I think Kansas State has the athletes that, like, frankly, he doesn't have to play against in the Big Sky Conference. And not even close, really. I mean, you've watched probably more Big Sky basketball than I even have this season. There's just nobody there that is super scary in a way that Kansas State has guys that are going to be featured pros, right? There's Montana State maybe played 2 this year, and they both happen to play for Eastern Washington. So good for them. But if Battle goes off, Montana State wins this basketball game. I think that's truly it. Like, they're athletic enough to scare Kansas State, but the bench matchups is horrible for Montana State. When they go to their bench versus when Kansas State goes to theirs, they're going to be in trouble. So you have to stay out of foul trouble, and you have to make threes early, which is something that they're not all that great at doing. And I don't know if people have paid attention all that much to what happens to the bigs when the bench comes in.
Kansas State is really good at home, and they were really good at home this season. Away from home, they struggled, whether it was on the road or sometimes in neutral site situations. Here's the metrics. Here's what scares me a bit. Kansas State 24th in the country in KenPom. Montana State 110th. Kansas State 52nd on offense. Montana State 170th. So that's tough right there. Kansas State 19 on defense. Montana State 73rd. Here's what I think it comes down to, though. Kansas State wants to play fast. They're 40th in the country in terms of their tempo. Montana State is 221st. Like, they want to walk the ball up because, like you said, they want to go to the foul line. That slows the game down. This game opened at 140.5. It's down to 139.5. It also opened Kansas State -9.5. It's down to Kansas State -8.5. People are telling you how they think this game's kind of shaken up, that Montana State's going to be able to own this time of possession here.
When's the last time a Big Sky Conference team really freaked everybody out in the tournament? It was the bald dude from Eastern, like coming in with the headband, putting up 30. This is
I
a
think,
more
and they,
traditional Big Sky Conference team than some of these other ones that we've seen. It's just not a very good basketball conference. It really isn't. And I look, man, I went to Montana State, go Bobcats, all that good stuff. Kansas State's just better than them at everything when it comes to playing basketball. Just I can't say it enough, man. Raekwon Battle has to have 25 points. And if he can do that, Montana State will win this game. It's just like the fact that nobody did that to Kansas State hardly in the Big 12 makes me question if somebody can pop up from Bozeman, Montana and put 25 on these guys' heads.
yeah, and the guy Tanner Groves on Eastern
Yeah.
Washington, he got a nice little scholarship from Oklahoma out of it, and so maybe that can happen for some of the guys here. But that's a game I'm going to be watching. I can't wait for that game, and it's going to be at 9:40 in Greensboro. So another thing, both these teams have to travel. We'll see. We'll see how that affects them. But Greensboro is a pretty shooter-friendly place here, so that may be a little bit better for Kansas State. So we'll see. But all right, let's close this out. USC, Michigan State. We all know the saying: January, February, Izzo, April. This team has not been very good this season. USC, Andy Enfield, from his time at Florida Gulf Coast and some of the runs they've had at USC in the tournament, he's a good tournament coach. So you're not necessarily having one edge over the other in terms of the coaching advantage. USC comes in a little banged up, but Tyson, these are like absolutely similar teams in terms of the metrics in KenPom. 41 on offense for MSU, 43 for USC, 40 on defense for MSU, 48 for USC. Now, the thing that slows it down, or that's different, is the tempo. USC wants to play fast. Michigan State wants to go slow and run their offensive sets. I can see USC winning this game. I really can. What do you think?
I think Michigan State just comes down, gets them into foul trouble, and USC is not deep enough to deal with it because they were looking at like a seven-man rotation is essentially what they play. I mean, they can go to 8 if they really, really want to, but that's not the way that you win in March. You don't show up and then all of a sudden flip your entire rotations. And now we're playing 9 guys, and it's going to be crazy. Michigan State is not. How do I say this? They're not good enough to just be like, oh, it's an Izzo team. They'll beat Marquette and they'll be there. I think that they're certainly good enough to beat USC. It's just both these guys, I think, are getting put to slaughter in the second round.
Now, keep an eye on Marquette in the first round here. Shaka Smart has lost his last 6 or 7 first round games in the tournament. So now he's had success as a head coach, obviously at VCU. It didn't work out at Texas, and that was, the run that they had over in the Big East tournament. And that was impressive. But, and like you said off the top, Vermont, we're always like, man, this Vermont team, watch out for them, and they get blown out. And here's the question. Vermont's 113th in KenPom rating, Marquette 12th. Vermont 99 in offense, 153 in defense, 314 in tempo. So if you're not very good on offense when you're slowing the tempo down, that scares me. And then if Marquette's a 135, or 135th in the country in tempo, and Vermont's defense is 153 and a half court setting, if these kids get sped up, this could get ugly. Marquette, a 10.5 point favorite. That's going to be a bet for me. I like Marquette in this one to keep everything rolling.
And I'm playing that with you. I mean, Marquette wants to go up and down and up and down and up and down on offense, but then when you have the ball, they're going to make you use all 30 seconds. So if it's what they want to do perfectly, I think this thing gets out of hand pretty quick. And to me, in this quadrant of the bracket, in this region, I got Marquette and Duke facing off to get to the Final Four. And I've really struggled with who I think wins that basketball game. I'm going with Duke because that's our ticket. That's what I financially would benefit me if that happened. But I think the attitude that Marquette showed to close that Big East tournament, it was like, whoa, this is a team that's like, we're trying to win a national. Fuck this Big East shit. I want a national championship. And that's kind of how it felt. And that's how it looked. And they dogged Xavier. And I think they're going to be able to dog Vermont. And then from there on out, like nobody's going to have more confidence in the tournament because is Michigan State or USC scaring Marquette? No.
No,
Is
they don't score
Kentucky,
well enough.
Providence, Kansas State, or Montana State scaring Marquette? No.
I bet you Marquette wants to see Providence.
Yeah, probably, ideally, right? But like, I don't think if they get matched up with Kentucky or Kansas State, I don't think either one of those guys,
Nah.
put much fear in them at all. It's just this is going to be really, really fun. And this is the one where I think the one seed goes out the earliest. I think Purdue lasts the least amount of time as number one this year.
Yep, I got Duke and Marquette coming out of the East as well. I like the path for them. As far as it goes in the South, I have Alabama here. Now I'm struggling right now because Arizona doesn't. They do not give me a lot of confidence. Their guards, legitimately, I think they could get outplayed by Utah State here. So I'm struggling to advance Arizona into the Elite Eight as a 2 seed. I like this Utah State team. I watched a good amount of Mountain West basketball this year. I struggle with their poor performance in past tournament times.
Yeah.
But listen, at some point, water has to find its level. And so I don't think you can be scared of what happened in the past. Like we said off the top, listen, these are different teams this year. Creighton is someone, I think if they get past NC State, if they match up with Baylor, that's going to be a banger. And whoever wins that game, I believe, is actually going to be facing Alabama in the Elite Eight. But also, I'm not a fan of this Baylor team either. So I don't know. I think the South is where I'm least confident, to be completely honest with you, Tyson.
Yeah, I mean, I'm confident that Bama wins it. Beyond that, I don't
Right.
really know what happens. And I'm also never been more sure of anything that we're going to get a bunch of boomers on Facebook and whatever other social media that they use when they see the 7'3" guy from Creighton playing outside the arc and he's getting 5 rebounds a game. People are going to lose their minds, man. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And here we're pretty simpatico. Houston facing off with Texas in the Elite Eight, with Texas coming out of it, which pains us to say because we love Houston.
Yeah. Preseason ticket on him and all, but like
Yep.
watching him throughout the year, I just like they didn't beat anybody.
No. And poor Jim Nance, man. He's not going to be able to call in this last tournament. He's not going to be able to call his guys Houston in the Final Four, but don't worry, he'll be able to call him. He's actually calling that game against Northern Kentucky. So good for you there. Kansas, I'm struggling to get them to the Elite Eight. I really am.
They either win the entire tournament or they're out against Arkansas.
They're not winning the whole thing because Bill Self can't win the whole thing twice. Like Bill Self barely won the first one.
You said he couldn't win it last year too, and they did all right. But
lucky.
Who would have thought Randy Martin
lucky.
was going to show up and start making it rain and all that good stuff? This bracket's super interesting. I think St. Mary's could really mess somebody's bracket up. I think UConn being the popular pick is a little bit interesting. And I still think, like, I know TCU's dealing with injuries and all this stuff, but like they've been in big time games. And they've held off runs from big time teams. And that's something that I think that them matching up with Gonzaga could be pretty fun in the second round.
Yeah, that would be an awesome game. Okay, Tyson. Well, that's kind of our overall thoughts. We're gonna have our bets in the chalkboard app that Tyson will tell you about. Let's just give overall strategy for people here because I do think there's a difference between betting the tournament and filling out your bracket.
Oh, 100%.
And so I'll give my spiel real quick. It's fun to have these upsets in your bracket, and you need to do that. So if you're in a big pool, you need to take swings on upsets. If you're in a huge contest, 30 plus, you're going to have to separate yourself with some of these early round upsets, or else you're just not going to have enough
and
points.
You need a different national champion than other people if you really 100%. Want to win.
Exactly. But the most important thing, you have to get your Final Four teams right. That's where you're going to get your points. So you have to get those right. You have to pick off teams in the early round if you want to differentiate yourself. If you're in a smaller one, go chalk as much as possible. Who do you think is going to win? Because it doesn't really matter. It's going to be a finite detail in these smaller brackets. You're really going to want to pound your national champion here and teams who probably are going to win more times than not. Now, betting the tournament, it's fun to have these upsets. I always say, and some people are different, but for me personally, I take the points with the dogs because crazy stuff happens in this. And if the dog's up by 3 and all of a sudden they lose on a buzzer beater and I just took a money line, that is heartbreaking. And it's happened in the past. It will not be happening to me going forward. Now, I will take a sprinkle on Furman money line, but I'm also taking them with the points. So in case they do lose a heartbreaker, okay, I split 1-1. Now, if they just get their ass kicked, well, listen, I picked the game wrong, and that just happens. So that's just a little bit of my strategy here. Tyson, what is some stuff you want to share before we get out of here?
I think the most important thing that I've learned is like you got to let go of preconceived notions and the kind of the feelings you have with these teams because I feel one way about Michigan State playing against other Big Ten teams. I don't feel that way about them playing against teams they haven't played all year from different conferences. And I think you have to constantly reevaluate. You can't, uh, like you and I having a Duke Features ticket, that's not going to preclude me from, picking Duke to get bounced if they look shaky against Oral Roberts and they're going into the second round. And I think you just have to play everything by ear and you have to reevaluate after each round. You can't just, uh, it's really hard for these guys to have a crappy performance and barely get by somebody and then show up and win by 25. That doesn't really happen in the NCAA tournament. So it's just kind of hoping that you can diagnose what's going on with these teams the right way. And then if something looks too good to be true in March, it probably is. Like if everybody in the country is telling you that this upset's about to happen, it's probably not. And on the flip side, like if something looks uh, a little bit fugazi, a little bit funky to you on the line, don't be afraid to place multiple bets on unders throughout the tournament because uh, these guys are going to be tight, man. They're 18,
Yep.
19 years old. They're showing up. It's the biggest stage ever. Half these guys haven't played in front of a gym bigger than 4,000 people in their entire lives. Now they're playing against Houston in the second round, and it's a whole different world. So unders, I think, are always a nice safe play here in March. But if you want all of our plays, they'll be in the Chalkboard app. That's on Google Play and the App Store. It's just we have an XFL parlay or XFL straight up pick for the first time. We have golf picks in there. We're obviously going to have college basketball stuff. We got the NFL draft happening. Told you last night to lock in a Peter Skoronski ticket if you could get it on offshore books to the Bears at number 9. Today they sent 9 people to his pro day. Just little things like that I think are important because when we're doing these things, like we're not, you know, certified experts or anything like that, but we might have the same opinion as everybody else, but we're trying to get it 300 points earlier than others. So that's why I think it's important to be in the Chalkboard app. The group name is the Roundtable.
Absolutely. First half unders too, Tyson.
Yeah.
That may be a lot of stuff happening for me this week as well. And like Tyson said, find all of our plays in there. In the meantime, though, because we have a ton more content coming out, it's not just March Madness time, although we love it. It's probably one of our favorite things. We're going to have Draft Dive. We got to do it. We're going to have another Draft Dive this week as we continue to get into the minds of these general managers, what we think they should do, how they should assess their teams and different things in that front. So like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss a single thing in any of the content that we put out. Also, give us a follow on social media. Our Instagram is @_the roundtable pod _. The TikTok handle is the same. And you can always send us a tweet over at TRT _pod. More stuff coming out. Join the Chalkboard for all of our bets. We'll be talking to you guys later this week. Enjoy March Madness. Until then, guys, peace.